at 6:02. So while you're waiting, please make sure to subscribe to all of our channels on WeChat, Facebook, Instagram, and our newsletter. And I'm going to send the links in the chat box right now for you guys to sign up. All right, so it looks like we're just about ready to get started here. Again, welcome to 780U. So really quickly, just to let you guys know, next week we have an awesome free event for some of our younger students. So as part of our 780U Fun Club, we're hosting an at-home science event called Tinted Flowers next Thursday from 4 to 4:30 Pacific time. And using flowers that you can find from home, we're actually going to learn how to dye them into a completely different color while learning the science behind the experiment. So make sure to tell your family and friends about this hands-on experience. I'm going to send the registration link and the information into the chat box, and we're going to get started in just a second. All right, awesome. Welcome to our 7EDU College Admissions FAQ session. Today, we are super, super lucky to have 7EDU's founder and co-founder, June and Dr. Yan, here with us today to answer all of the questions that you have about the college admissions process. So we're going to start off with some questions that you have submitted through our registration form, and we're going to answer those. And as we're answering them, please drop all of your questions into the chat box or the Q&A box. So before we get started, I wanted to really quickly introduce Arielle, who is one of our academic advisors who will be reaching out after this session to answer any questions and provide extra assistance on how you can have the best college application process. So Arielle, do you want to turn on your camera and introduce yourself really quickly?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited you guys all showed up. I know I've been outreaching, so you probably heard my voicemail or even my emails, but like Ann said, I'll be reaching out afterwards to make sure we have your support and we can help you out any way we can. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arielle. So now I'm going to give a brief introduction of our esteemed speakers tonight, as well as a quick look at 7EDU's college admissions results. So first off, we have our lovely founder of 7EDU, June Liu, with us here today. She's a college admissions counselor for over 10 years, and as also a pioneer of the K-12 distance learning, June has really developed a high quality system of virtual tutoring and college counseling for a global student community. One of June's really awesome qualities is that she understands that no two students learn the same way, and that educators must have a unique way of approaching each student. And so thus she knows the key to college acceptances is through crafting a unique story for each student. And so June's students have been accepted at schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and the list goes on. And then next off, we have with us here today Dr. Yan. Dr. Yan is a tenured college professor as well as a postdoc at Stanford formerly and a data scientist at Coursera. She has over 18 years in experience with STEM subjects, particularly, as well as reading and writing for high school, college, and graduate students. And currently, Dr. Liu is serving on the editorial board of 2 international journals, has published over 40 articles in peer reviewed top tier journals, conference proceedings, and books. So clearly, we have 2 wonderful panelists with us here today. So without further ado, I'm going to quickly go over some of 7EDU's results for us here. So as you can see, 7EDU has had extremely great results with college acceptances in the past few years. Pretty much every single top college that you can imagine is on this list. And we will have this sent out as well afterwards. So without further ado, June and Dr. Yan, let's get started. So first off here, we're gonna have some questions that were submitted through the registration forms. And so the first question is, Columbia University versus UPenn, which one is better?
All right. Okay. So can everybody see me? Okay, cool. Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Arielle. So we are so happy to be here and to introduce some of the questions and also some like tips for everybody to, pass through this period successfully. Before we start, and actually, I want to introduce some of the useful information that can help you during this application season part. I think we already shared in the chat box, but I would like to share it again. So if you look at our website on the blog resources part, and actually we write some articles about how to write essays and how to deal with all the application part. And the essay prompt, we even give like specific analysis. For example, all the uses 8 prompts. So we just give them the detailed analysis for every single one. So if you can check it, and some of the prompt, I think that the prompt number 5, a lot of people would like to write it. So we already have like more than 8,800 reveals because they are really helpful. So I really want you guys to go to the website to check the resources and find out the prompt that you want to write about it, and then you just can look at that and figure out what is going to be your story and what you need to be aware. So the other thing that I want to introduce a little bit more that can support students and parents to go through this period is the YouTube channel. So if you go to the YouTube channel to find out like our YouTube channel, you can find like we have so many different videos, and those videos basically can give you some like a general idea about the different schools. We have UC Berkeley's, we have different kind of like NYU, and we are just trying to explore more to give more suggestions regarding the different colleges. So basically we invited students in the college and try to give us some detail, like during the COVID-19, how is the new life and how it work out in the schools, and also how they get into the schools and what is the advice that they can give to their like younger peers. I think those videos can be very helpful. So just click us on the YouTube channel and find out. And also let us know what kind of information you need to, give you guys like more support. All right, so today I invited Dr. Yen to join me together. So in 7EDU's college counseling program, so usually we work on together. Dr. Yen specialized in the STEM major students and also help them to figure out the right path. And I working on the English later part and also the business major. So this is like the best combination for me and Dr. Yen working together for the students. We also have mentors to go through all the periods to support everybody. This is part of the process we want to explain. So so you guys can understand us better. Okay, cool. So we just heard one of the question. Actually, we collected some of the question from my side as well, and we want to share little by little. All right, Dr. Yen, are you there?
Yes, hi. Hi,
Okay.
everybody. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we can start it. First, the question is Columbia University versus UPenn. Which one is better? Okay, so we would take turns. Dr. Yan?
Okay, so I think this is a very hard question. So if some student get into either of the two colleges, and you should be very happy, and we should congratulate you on getting into such a wonderful school. But between the two, I think it's not very easy to answer a question. It's not because it's very hard to compare the two schools in terms of academics. They are very similar. So if you just consider school by school, I think you will be disappointed on that side. I think both schools have invest a lot of resources in boosting up your academics. So you actually probably would, if you really need to choose between the two schools, and of course you need to go to the campus and at least do a virtual tour of the campus to see which campus you prefer more. And also, obviously, Columbia is inside New York City, and then UPen is in the suburb. So in terms of environment, and you ask yourself, do you prefer living in a city or do you prefer living in a suburb? And then because the lifestyle may be slightly different. And also, I think one key difference between the two schools is in terms of how rigid the curriculum is. Because UPenn is more flexible in terms of what courses you can take, and you actually can have multiple majors and you take courses from different schools, and you have a lot of more flexibility at UPenn. Right, in Columbia, on the other hand, is more restricted. So you kind of have a very clear path to follow.
Yes, I agree. And I think this question is very general. You really have to combine this question with major. What major you want to go for? That's very important. So both are private for sure. And if you want to really compare which one is easier, I would say Columbia University has, I would say it's more competitive. So it's harder to get into Columbia than UPenn, like generally, but except certain majors. And also, if you compare the size, I would say Columbia is larger, and they have a more full-time facilities and the faculties, and they have more like they have a bigger campus generally. So if you really want to generally compare, you can compare like tuition, everything else, and you can just check online. But if you really want to compare to like which one is hard to get in, I would go for Columbia is harder. UPenn is a little bit easier compared to Columbia. I think if that's the question, what do you want to ask? So the second question is, what are the differences between SAT, CT? How do I decide which one to take? Actually, this one question is combined, should be combined with the question they ask, will more and more schools and job SAT, ACT as a requirement, and how the Asian students stand out. I think we can compare the two questions together. So if you apply university this year, and actually SAT, ACT should not be your concern if you never take it, you know. But if you took already, good. Okay, if you never take it, that's fine, because this year is very special, and a lot of school they say test optional, test blind. So it just not really going to affect you for the SAT, ACT score. So when things become optional, everybody has different understanding. I would say many times before, leadership's optional and activities are optional. So everything basically you're doing is optional except your school, right? But in order to get in a good school, you can not only have your school GPA, you also need to have a lot of different things. And all the things at all will boost your competition. So they are all optional. So if you understand in that skill, and I think you will have a better answer. So between SAT, ACT, because these days they keep cancel the SAT. I know a lot of students, they struggle with the disappointment. They have been canceled and canceled again. So if you still like a freshman or junior, and you probably still have chance to prepare and to take it. And because these two tests are also compete each other, and ACT, they're now pushing forward to the online testing. So I think that will take more advantages in the future. For SAT, we are not sure what kind of strategy they're gonna go for, and let's wait and see. Nobody gonna know what's gonna happen next year, but for now, we'll say because nobody can take it, so that's why this is sometimes that you probably want to read just a little bit your strategy and your plan, and also make a different timeline, and maybe your milestone can be adjusted a little bit. So what do you think, Dr. Yan?
Yeah, so the first part of the question is the difference between the two tests. So probably someone who still in at least before junior, like maybe junior or even earlier, asking this question. So the difference between SAT and ACT, the main difference is the pace. And ACT is much faster pace compared to SAT. Because for ACT, you actually have to answer each question within less than 1 minute. But for SAT, you actually have a slightly longer than 1 minute to answer each question. So the pace is a key difference. And in terms of sessions, the ACT has a unique session called science. Well, but actually it does not test you really science knowledge. It's more like science reading. But a lot of students struggle with the science section in the ACT test. If you don't like science at all, you don't like science reading at all, and then probably you can get away by just taking SAT. Um, However, there are some science reading in the SAT reading section. Yeah, so there's a pros and cons between the two tests. So if you really want to know which one to take, you actually can take diagnostic tests to us, and we offer free diagnostic tests for both SAT and ACT. And so after you have taken the test, we can do analysis for you, and then we can offer our suggestions to see which test actually fits you better, or which test you can improve faster. So basically, that's what we want to know, right? With some time, you can probably improve, but with the limited time, which one can help you to get the highest score you can reach within a shortest amount of time?
Okay, so next question. So hope we answered the question regarding to if they want to drop ACT, SAT, and we can talk a little bit more about the Asian student strategy. And actually, we did mention that for the last seminar. If you want, you can just go to the YouTube channel to find our previous seminars recordings. We did mention, and we invited Hafer and Arielle as a expert admin officer to talk about what they're in their eyes about their Asian student, how the Asian student can stand out. So the third question is the style of common essay. Well, I don't really get know what is the meaning for this question. So the style of common essay, or what kind of essay can be called good, or what should you have the style for the common essay? Okay, and could you please be a little bit specific? What is the question try to ask, or this is just what they try to ask? The common essay style.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely. I think that this was just what the question was in the registration form, but I will say that a question that I've also seen like similar to this is basically like for the common application essay, like how should students like what kind of stories should students tell, right? Like what are some of the best stories that you've been able to see?
Okay. All right. So this is something I have been working on, and also it has made me very, I would say, headache. Okay, this is the words that I think most of the time I would like to use during the application season, because I've been working with different students on their essays and stories, and I would say everybody should have a different story. And I do see students keep looking online and looking for the simple essays and end up like they just don't know what to write about because there's so many awesome stories, and then compared to their life they feel like, oh, nothing ordinary extraordinary happened in my life. I'm just a plain kids with plain life. I don't have things to talk about. Well, I don't believe so, because you really want to make it personal. When it's personal, I conquered another challenge, because a lot of students, they don't really feel comfortable to open them up. They've well, some of them told me, like, this is my privacy, I don't want to write my privacy down. I was like, oh, you don't need to, expose your privacy, but you really have to find something personal, because only you know what happened, what you've been through, right? So you really have to conquer this discomfortness, right? You have to feel like, oh, I'm telling to the paper my story to show who I am. The people who read your essay, they don't know you, so please feel safe. Okay. And the other part is, I really want everybody to make sure you finish your Common App before the end of this month, because if you really apply for EAED and you don't want to wait for the later regular application, right? And also the UCs. So most of our students already finished. So the other part, that if you want to give a suggestion, I would say, please avoid repetition, because I do notice the essay is full of the language, like pretty vague. I believe, I think, and with a lot of description, but it just cannot get to the point. And I also notice some of them, it just kind of like, you feel like you write a lot, but it's not specific enough. For example, you say, oh, I was very nervous, I was very stressful, but that's not a specific enough, right? So what is the feeling? So how you feel like nervous, how you show like you're nervous, For example, if you see like your hands are shaking, that's better to say, hey, I'm just nervous. For that writing section, we have been telling students in our critical reading writing class, and I have been giving them examples about a college essay. And I think you really want to be personal and be specific. Yeah. So for this part, and I also want to invite Dr. Yan to tell a little bit about like for students who apply for STEM major, the common problem and common issues that she's facing. Dr. Yan?
Yeah, I think for actually it's not major issue for Common App because the question is for Common App, and the Common App is supposed to be personal. It's not why you choose certain major. But of course, when you describe the personal challenges you went through and or the strength you want to show, and then you can use some of the activities that you really feel passionate about. So, example, we had a student who actually got admitted by Harvard, actually all the Ivies last year, and then she wrote a story about her passion for robotics. Of course, she did not use the word passion. Please don't use that word in your essay. So you don't want to use the adjectives, and you want to show your story, and the people will summarize for you. They want to see what kind of person you are. And I think for STEM students or students who are very strong in STEM, one thing they need to conquer or step out of their comfort zone is what June said. You need to get personal. I think I'm a very logical person, so I really can identify on how they think about themselves. If you are too logical, it's not very interesting anymore. They know you're a logical person, but this is an opportunity for you to show the other side of you, the interesting part of you. You actually want to break that logic of you and write something that is like wow effect rather than like people can see the story. Or if people can predict what you want to say, actually it's not interesting anymore. Yeah, so you want to show some excitement and something unpredictable in your essay. Yeah, just some caveat for students who are very logical, tend to be very logically thinking, and that's something they really have to work on in their essay.
Yes, and you do really have to show your personal growth and maturity. And the most important thing, you don't want to only show your good part. You can show your weak point as well, but you just don't go too negative. I do see the students, they write a lot about like how bad they are, and eventually the last paragraph say like, oh, you they don't want to be the kind of person anymore. I was like, wait, that's too much, right? You just show like you're kind of like, nobody, you can't do anything, and then you just decided you don't want to be like that anymore, and there's no further development, right? That shows like, oh, you may be still stuck there, right? So I don't want to be, the person to give you another chance. I wanted to see you already prove like you can, change yourself or improve. So this is something you really want to avoid. And also you don't want your essay to look like a resume and you just keep saying every good things and listing all the successful story that you did. That's not good either. So I would say most of the Asian students that parents asking me or talk about, I mean, not only the Asian student, but also the students like from different kind of race and nationalities, I would say they all lack of one important thing is personality. And I think a lot of situation is like the parents ignore the personality. So I would say if you already apply universities this year and you probably have to think about it and have some deeper conversation with your kids or with yourself to think about who I am, what is my personality, what kind of person I am, what I want everybody else to know me about. That question can ask you, and if you able to answer the question who you are, maybe that's the best way for you to develop, how to present yourself. And if you still have some times, maybe you have 1 year or 2 years, you really have to think about the personality development. When I talk about a personality, I talk about like more generally, right? So you need to think about is your do they have the personality, a charming personality or funny personality, or what kind of personality? That's very important. So if you are not able to tell your kid's personality, that's kind of hard. Even stubborn, that's good. That's personality as well. So you really want your kids to have a personality. You don't want to be like, oh, what is the best? I don't know. You tell me. So that's not good. And I do have some struggle with the students. They keep asking me, what kind of story is the best? What kind of things I should write or I should not write. They're so afraid of exposing themselves, end up like they just don't know what to write and how to write it. So you really have to be true to yourself, and that's the best way to be unique. And also there's like more strategies, and we can discuss about it if you're really interested to go further. All right, one more question is about Are there majors or departments that are easier to get in than others because there are less applicants? If so, how can we find out the numbers of applicants by department? Well, that's a very tricky question. What do you think, Dr. Yan?
Okay, now we get this question every year because we always find ways that allow us to get into those top schools. Okay, so the answer is yes and no. That really depends on the school. I like a lot of questions you have here. It really depends on the school, so we cannot give a like general an answer yes or no. That you have to go dig into each schools to see whether the application or admission is major based or it's not major based. But if you want you are thinking of this question because you really want to get one of the top schools, the answer actually is no, because for those schools, especially IVs, okay, and then they actually group all the applicants as an undecided. Even you declare major, they know that you will change your major, right? You may change your major. Actually, a number of students change majors. Therefore, what major you declare actually does not affect your admission. But for some schools, for example, UCs, and UCs, if you don't declare computer science, but eventually you really want to study computer science, even you get in, actually very hard for you to switch because they have very limited spot for taking extra computer science students, and therefore yes, and in that case, whether you declare major or the major you declare does affect your admission. So again, the answer is that you should have your school list. Or when you are thinking of this question, you need to have the school list and go into each school and see whether the admission are major based. Of course, for the second part, how can you find out the number of applicants by department? And this is confidential. Nobody will release that data. Yeah, so it doesn't know where you can find it out. But one thing we can get a sense in terms of how competitive a major is, you just go by the ranking for um, uh, a particular major inside a university. For example, we all know engineering and computer science are highly competitive, and maybe business also highly competitive. And in comparison, okay, I'm not saying some majors are less variable. Just in terms of number of applicants, some majors are not as popular as the other majors. Yeah, so we kind of have a general sense of what those majors are. But of course, that depends on the school as well. Some schools are very strong in certain majors, but not as strong in other majors. Then you know that for those strong majors, of course, they are highly competitive compared to the less popular majors.
Yes, I agree. And also, I would say it really gonna, I mean, you have to really make the story, right? To be a complete story. And how can I believe that you want to apply for, let's say, archaeology major, right? But you joined your STEM team, robotic team, and you did all your activities. It's not related. And so how can I believe like you are passionate about archaeology, right? So getting into some major like nobody apply doesn't mean like you have a more chance. So if you're really interested, you probably want to develop your interest or your path as early as possible. Let's say if you want to apply for archaeology, less people apply, and you really have to get activity related to archaeology, right? You really have to be interested and to try some, activities related to archaeology, and then you probably have story to tell. Those kind of things you have to, really track back and to plan as early as you can. If it's too late, you just go undecide. And I think that's like apply for general. Sometimes it's easier than going specific to the major. That also has the pros and cons. And according to what Dr. Ian says, you can just go back to think about it. Okay. So one more thing, they're talking about where to find the most reliable resources to find the major ranking of college and universities. Well, usually we don't really do the ranking, and I don't suggest people to go only for ranking. And I do have parents, they care more about the names instead of the major. But most of the parents, they care more about the majors than rankings. They know like if later you want to find a good job, your major weighs more than the ranking of the schools. Of course, the better, the higher, the better. But I would say they're all good schools for the top 30. They are all great schools. So if you really want to go back to find, you can go to the US News if you really want to find it. But if you look at the news, you probably want to feel like, oh, the school that I want to apply for example, Stanford, this year is like number 6. It's not even the top first, right? But that doesn't affect because people still want to consider Stanford to be the one of the best schools. So there's no like 1, 2, 3, 4. Just they're all great. Yeah. So don't really worry about that. It doesn't really matter. So the next question, last one is, do I need to attend a school interview? What preparation do I need? Most of schools, no, right? Some of schools, yes. For example, Brown, almost all students will get interview. They really like interview people. So if you really get interview, you have to really well prepare. But the most important thing is, I don't think this year gonna have like any physical face-to-face interview. So it's all virtual. So you really have to prepare the questions. And the most important thing is, like I would say, interview is not about the question you answer right or wrong. It's about like show who you are and your personality. I just really want to emphasize the words personality because that's why counselor. The very beginning when I met NOAA students, I would like to spend like several months to figure out the personality, the shining point, the personality that can fascinate people, can make people feel like that's an interesting person, would like to know the person more. But a lot of situations I do notice, like I can't find the interesting part of the personality, or the student has no personality. And then we probably want to have some activities for the student to try to, do it, to look into it, and maybe develop some of the part and to show some interest. That's personality you can develop. So if you're really, taking care of the younger kids, just please find a different way to develop the kid's personality. I would say academic, you always can find someone to give the tutor and help to grow. For GPA, fine, everything is fine. But if the personality cannot grow out during this process, that would be a big failure. You really cannot get into anywhere that you want to, or any like top place that you want to. So that's why we always say finding the fittest school is way better than finding the fame school. In this situation, just don't compare. Just don't compare. You really don't know somebody's, the time zone is quite different. Some kids, they shining at early stage. Some kids, they shining later. Some kids, they shining, in the early stage. When they get into the top school, they cannot survive. They got a depressed. They got a more mental problem. Some kids, they might struggle in high school. When they get into the colleges, they shine like crazy. So you never know their time zone. So that's why just don't compare, focus on the kids, finding the fittest school and finding the right path. And for now, I think this is an important year. There's so many things ongoing, and we also have parents ask us to prepare some of the seminars, talk about the mental issue or how to self-organize yourself, pick yourself together. The online stuff, my student told me like, I want to throw up whenever I see computer, right? So we would prepare that later. But I would say for now, if you apply this year, please focus on your essay. There's so many things ongoing this year. That's good, because without those, you probably never experience anything, right? Even in, going through this hard time, probably you don't feel anything either. So focus on your essay, try to dig out a story and to show who you are. And that's very important and the most important thing in 2020 application. Yeah. But if you're like a junior and you are like a freshman, you still have chance, but try to search some like colleges, because there's no way for you to do the tour anymore, right? So you want to search some colleges and find a website and look at the different department and majors and try to get a little bit warm up for next year, because it's pretty fast. Yeah. All right. So if you have any questions, you can ask. So we do have a question here. Say, there are more students taking gap this year. Will it affect next year's admission? You mean which grade? You mean this year they are 12th grade and they don't want to take a gap year and they want to apply the year after next year? What can you be more specific, the question?
I think that means a junior, current junior, and applying for next year. Yeah.
And gap year 1 year.
No, because the gap year senior students are taking now.
Oh, I see. Okay. I do have a student currently is like 12th grade and they're not going to apply this year. They're going to apply next year. Yeah. So I would say it's really have to tell the story. You need to explain carefully why. Yeah. So that's very important. But I don't see like it can affect the next year's admission. But I do have students, they plan to apply this year, and after they finish application, they want to take a gap year next year. So I'm more familiar with this situation, and that's something I agree with it, because I feel like that's consistently making students do on the same track, because you are not sure after this year they still want to apply. That's one of the issues. I do have the conversation with one of students. gap year from last year, and this year had the COVID-19 issue. So it's also hard for her to apply, you know. So you never know what's gonna happen next year. So better finish the application and then you can have a gap year. Maybe that's better case. I'm not really sure the specific situation. Yeah.
I think if the parent was concerned was that if you have a large number of applicants next, like the campus is crowded, if all the students, instead of starting their freshman this year, they start their freshman next year, and that means we'll have more freshmen on campus. If that's your concern, I think it's very hard to tell now because I think college can always find ways to expand the campuses, or they can be very creative. They, like with the COVID-19, some schools even rent hotels nearby to use as their classroom. And
Yeah.
then
The question is about a current senior applying for next year, which is applying for 2021 admission.
yeah,
Which I
yeah.
suggest like just to finish the application, and then you can just get the result, and then you can apply for gap year. You don't need to go to school right away, and you can have a gap year after application. I think that's easier. Yeah, that's easier. But I don't know the situation. If you have a health issue or any other things, that's different story. One more question, Dr. Ye. Which top 20 schools have more generous merit-based scholarship? How hard it is to obtain?
Usually, if you call generous merit-based scholarship, that most are public schools, right? Because private schools don't usually offer merit-based; they offer need-based scholarship. Yeah. So how hard is obtained? Mm, okay. Those big public schools, I think they're all very generous in giving out merit-based scholarship because they really want to attract talents. They know that most talents are attracted by those top private schools. That's why they are very generous in giving out the merit-based scholarships for those highly competent students. But in terms of how hard it's obtained, since it's merit-based, that means you really have to stand out academically. For example, if you have win some awards nationally, and of course that can academically, that definitely can help you. I'm talking about the regular track rather than the athletic track. Yeah, so I cannot say it's very hard if you are very highly competitive, and then you can obtain that. We actually have students who decide to go to public school, get like a full, basically full ride, and that means 4 years free. And because of that, she went to a public school instead of going to a private school. I don't think it's very hard as long as the student is highly competitive academically.
Okay, when I say, do you need to fill out the FAFSA to get that merit-based from state schools? Well, some merit-based scholarships, including, those offered by the colleges and those offered by private like scholarship providers, that require applicants to fill the FAFSA. Yes. So make sure that, I mean, that just want to make sure the family get all the need-based aid, and which they are okay, they are capable to get it. So so this is something, yes, I would say, but they do have some special case, but I would say a few hundred private scholarship will be even require family to fill the CSS or financial aid or profile form, things like that. So I would say, yeah, some of them, yes, some of them, they need to feel like other things other than the FAFSA. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the other ones say, okay, the question says, I saw you have 3 students were accepted by Santa Clara University. Can I ask if any of those were accepted by a School of Business? Thanks. Yes, we have one accepted by the business school, but end up like he didn't go, and he went to the University of Michigan, the Rose, which is a stronger. Yes, yeah, we do have one. Yeah, so the schools that we listed, all the offers that the students get are not the final result that they choose to go, because we believe like if they get the offer, that shows the dedication of all the teachers and SE experts. We work on together to get those offers. For example, our student get into Harvard, MIT, and Yale, and end up only choose Harvard. But that we spend a lot of time on Yale and MIT as well. Yeah. So with more and more schools job SAT, SATs requirement, how can Asian students stand out? All right. So Dr. Yan, I would like to share your thoughts first, and then I will add on. Mike as well.
I think that's very sad. But I think Asian students don't just stand out in SAT and ACT, and they have other ways to show their academic strength. For example, their GPA. I think there was a question early on. I saw that if we drop our SAT and ACT, whether GPA is more important. Yes. So if we line up all the academic evaluation or criteria for a college application, GPA is the most important, and then standard test, and then those extra things. So SAT and ACT actually come after your GPA. So make sure your GPA is very strong. And if you're very academic strong, your GPA should be strong. And of course, and then for other sides, and you, although SAT and ACT become optional, that does not mean the college admission officer will not look at them. In fact, if you have scores, they will look at them. They say it's optional. They didn't say it's blind. Okay, although some schools says it's blind, that means they will completely ignore the SAT and ACT. But most schools will look at the SAT and ACT scores. It's just that if you don't have it, they don't force you to have it because they don't want to raise the bar and to prevent students from applying if you don't have the score. Yeah. So for this year, yeah.
Same like AP. Yeah,
Mhm.
same like AP as well. And I want to answer this question from a different perspective. And I would say if you really want the Asian students to be outstanding, the best way to do is just prepare them in an Asian way. Because I do feel like the Asian student, well, except the ridiculous policy that everybody's right now is against. But I do see like a lot of parents, they train their kids in a certain pattern, which is kind of like the formula that costs a lot of Asian students quite similar, especially when I look at the different, essays and resumes, and I do see the similarity. This is something like not everybody want to, accept, so, but I do see a lot of Asian students. So when I met them and I just told them like, you're not a typical Asian student. I think that's the most frequent thing that I usually say, because their personality, their interests, the way they're growing, it just not very Asian. Yeah. If you want to consider Asian as a pattern or as a formula, and I do see a lot of students, they're not Asian student style at all. So it really depends on how you want to understand the Asian students. I would say for most of the schools, and you really have to show your personality, and you really want to grow your mind, out of the box, and you don't want to have the label. And I don't want the parents to label our kids either, because you don't want to label them, because nobody can divide the people by the color, by the skin, right, by the race. And we're against that. And if you really want to train the kids to be like growing, just be bold, don't label them, and try to encourage them. But if you really want to just like train them, study hard, become engineer, for example, I don't mean like engineer is not good, but I just say if you really want to do that, or let's say 80% of people want to do that, and that group of students will have similarity, and that group of students is really competitive because they are competing each other. I think that's the situation that we're facing right now. So find a different pattern. Now, there's so many majors, so many things to explore. And I really encourage the students, also the parents, to try to think out of box. Do not just limit it into the certain major. And that will reduce a lot of stress, and also probably going to give you like different like eye-opening opportunities. Yeah. Last question, okay? And we're going to finish. So we already ran out of time. So would a top liberal arts college evaluate applicants differently from a top national universities? Okay, I would say all the top schools, they evaluate the students in a certain way, but they do have a different preference. Some school they preferred maybe like music talent. Some school they prefer maybe like leadership. They do have a like slight difference with a different preference. Yeah. Okay, so should Asian students avoid mentioning learning music instrument in the essay as considered as Asian label? I I really want to answer this question because I think first you really labeled a lot on the kids, so you're trying to find out the way that pretend that's not okay, which is not right. If they have a talent, of course you should list it. Learning music is not a label for Asian students, is not. And I have students getting into the top schools and piano very good, like play beautiful pianos. and got into top 3 schools, and Asian and boy, and all the probably the keywords that you can imagine. But he successfully got it. It's not a label. That's not a label. Okay, so please do not label and try to think a different way. Okay, I would really like to talk to you privately later. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Yan. And we really want to just giving more time, but because of the application season is really busy, that's why we only want to shorten this time to answer as questions as possible, as many as possible. If you do have more questions, give us a call or schedule a meeting with our advisors, and hope everybody can get a good result these days. And please be positive, okay? There's only less than 3 months to the end of this year. And one of the things I do want to share with everybody, and you can share with the kids as well, well, do not ever think about it going back to norm. Maybe the word is going to change from the beginning, right? From now. So try to adjust a new way. Yeah, do not try to go back to norm. So you just really want to be positive and make it happy, and to pay more attention to the kids' mental health. And that's very important during this season, I would say. All right, so everyone, good luck, best wishes. All right, thank you, Dr. Yan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Hey,
Anne.
everyone. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Have a
June
great
and Dr.
weekend.
Yan.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye. So for those of you who are still on the call, we know we didn't get to every question that you guys have, but no worries. I left our academic advisor, Arielle's contact information in the chat box. And so if you have more questions or want to schedule a free 30-minute consultation, please reach out to Arielle. Now I'm going to once again drop all of our links to sign up, to follow us on our social media. As June mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, our blogs answer a lot of the questions that you guys have asked today, and our YouTube channel also has a lot of videos from college students themselves answering your questions. So I'm going to drop those links. And thank you so much for attending our event.